Hey guys, how you doing? This is going to be my first DM and player help guide. I went to a wonderful group of new players and GMs and asked what kind of topics they would like me to cover in these videos. And one that immediately caught my eye was a player asking for help on how to go about filling out the character sheet. And immediately I knew that this had to be my first video because you can't even play D&D without filling out the character sheets appropriately. It would be a mess and a nightmare. So anything to get more players playing the game sounds like a topic worthy of covering. If you are an expert at filling out the sheet, this video is not for you. I am looking for people who are confused about these pages and what numbers to write where. And we will help you here. So let's begin looking at the front of a normal D&D empty blank sheet. At the top here is character name. So I'm just going to write any name in there, whatever name my character should have. So Poppy Noggle. All right, we got Poppy Noggle there. That's my first thing that I do. And then there is a box adjacent to it with class and level, background, player name, race, alignment, and experience points. Now, I usually don't use the experience points thing too much. It's just where you write your current amount of experience points and often whatever you need to level up. So out of, let's say, 1,000. And you just write your current experience points. Player name, obviously, that's where you write your name. My name is Daniel, so that's what I'm going to write there. Background, this is for later on when we get to building the PC. The first thing I like to do is the stats on the PC. Or, excuse me, the first thing I like to do is class and level. So let's say for fullness of this character, we're going to be playing a simple fighter. So I'm opened up to the most important page the most important pages for building a character. That's 12 and 13 in the player's handbook. So pages 12 and 13 describe pretty much everything you need to know to build a character except for your class page. So I'm going to skip over to the fighter here, which is farther on in the book. And the reason I am going to start with the fighter is because they're really simple. Fighters get very few abilities and are pretty easy to build as far as a new character goes. They only really use this first and second page. They don't make use of the spell page unless you choose to make an Eldritch Knight. So let's go ahead and make a fighter. And they are level 1. So far we've got Poppy Noggle there, a level 1 fighter with my terrible handwriting, my name, and the amount of experience points that we will need. All right, so then we need to choose a race. We are going to be a human because it's the first one that came to my mind. Now, obviously, if you want to choose a different race, then you can do so as a fighter. Alignment, we'll get to that eventually with background. So we've gotten a little bit of the upper box filled out, and we have enough to go ahead and start on the statistics and all of these many complicated boxes on the front page. We will be covering the front page in this video, and I will get to the other 2 pages in a separate video in the future. All right, so this little box right here says inspiration. Now, I usually have my players put a little check mark there if they have inspiration, or they can put an X in that box. That's really just to keep track of whether or not you have inspiration or not. If you don't have inspiration, leave it blank. The proficiency bonus, this is a really easy one. It is right underneath the inspiration box. and this is the number that you add to all rolls you are proficient in. And that number is shown in the class ability box. So this is the fighter page right here. This fighter guide, this is page 70 of the player's handbook. This is the fighter class. And the proficiency bonuses are shown in these little boxes that give you all your level up abilities in all the classes. So this is the fighter one. The proficiency bonus box is right here. Starts at +2 and goes up to +6 eventually at level 20. So since it starts at a +2, that is what we will write in there. And as we gain levels, we will increase that number, giving us additional bonuses to our proficient skills. So we start there and we add, so +2. All right, and now we've got a +2 there. And when we train in abilities and saving throws, we're going to get an additional +2 bonus to them. All right, so we've got our basics of the sheet filled out, and now we actually get to the character building part. So we've chosen race and class, and now we need to do some stats. You can do a lot of what I'm going to do from here on out in any order, but you do have stats as a foundation for most of these saving throws and skills right here. So we will do those first because they're pretty basic. So we go back to the main character page, page 12 and 13 here in the player's handbook. And this is the one with Bruno the dwarf on them in our player's handbook again. So this page right here is the main page that I use for building characters, and it describes determining your ability scores. So there are usually many ways you can do this. The main two are going to be rolling for your ability scores, which you can do in a number of ways. The way in the book is to roll 4 6-sided dice and record the total, the 3 highest dice of the 3 highest dice on the scratch sheet of paper. So if I wanted to do this, I would take 4d6, got my 4d6 here, I would roll them for my strength score right here, boom. All right, so I take the 3 highest and drop the lowest one, so I got a crappy 1 here, so I'm dropping that. And I take these and add them together, 7, 11 points. So I would write an 11 in my little strength box there. Got it. So next one in line, my dexterity score. All right, so I got, that was a 3. All right, so this is actually pretty solid. So I drop the 1, this crappy 1 right here, and I get 12 with these 2 6s, 15, which is great for me. So I get a 15, and actually I'm going to write these on the side of my sheet because I get to assign them to a block later on. I will assign these numbers later on. All right, so we've got 2 scores. We need 6 total, so we're going to keep going. So another pretty decent roll. So I dropped the 1 again. I'm just going to drop all of the 1s forever. All right, so that's 11, 14 points. So my stats so far looking real solid. 3 more. All right, this one, let's roll that. This one also is pretty darn good. So that's 13. All right, 2 more. All right, drop the 2 there. And I have 8, 11. So I got 1 medium stat at the moment, an 11. And 1 more. All right, drop the 1. This one's not looking as good. So this is a 10. So I'm still average. All right, so I got an 11, 15, 14, 13, 11, and 10 here. So that's decent stats. They're not crazy. They're not terrible. Pretty average. And I get to choose what I'm going to put those in. So among strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and my charisma score. All right, so since I'm a fighter, I'm definitely going to put the highest number in my strength because I'm going to be a big bulky boy. So I got a 15 here in my strength, and I'll mark that number off. And my constitution, I want to be a tough boy, because I need all the hit points. I'm going to be in the front lines. So I'll put a 14 in my con. And then let's say I don't really care too much about dexterity because I've already got a lot of strength, and that's what I'm going to use to wield my weapons. So I'm going to put a 10 in my dexterity. Got it. Intelligence, I am dumb fighter trope, so I don't want to be that smart, or I don't need to be anyway. So I'm going to put an 11 there. All right, so I got an 11 and a 13. So I'm going to be a wise fighter and put the higher number, the 13, in my wisdom, and then do the 11 for my charisma. All right, so my stats are going to look like this. We've got a 15 strength, 10 dexterity, 14 constitution, 11 intelligence, 13 wisdom, and 11 charisma. All right, so some people like to write the main number, the actual score, in this little box down here. Some of them like to write like a 15 in there. I like to write the actual score in here, but you can do it either way. Whatever the score goes in, the modifier goes in the other box or bubble. So now we're going to write our modifiers, and you can find the ability score modifiers chart right here, same page, page 13 in the player's handbook, the one with Brunor again, that dwarf, his handsome face standing there. So this is the ability score modifiers sheet, or chart, and these numbers are what matters to us. We want to compare our score on this chart and get these numbers and write them in the little bubbles. So our strength score was a whopping 15, pretty decent. So we're going to look at this chart and find the 15 right there, and that is a +2. So we're going to write a +2 in there, but wait, we're missing something. We are a human, which means we get to increase our statistics for being a human. You get race bonuses for all of the races. So we're going to go to the races section, and only a few pages from then we are going to get to the human on page 29 here. All right, so we got the human page here, and we are going to flip and look at page 31 for human, and humans get a +1 to all ability scores right there. So things like elves get bonuses to specific scores, or let's do a halfling in this case. So a halfling gets a +2 to their dex score, and then depending on whether or not they are a lightfoot or a stout halfling, they get different bonuses. So a lightfoot gets a +1 to charisma, and a stout halfling gets a +1 to constitution. But a human is strange and unique in that it gets a bonus to every stat. So we're going to go ahead and up our statistics right here. So this 15, if I can get a good eraser, is going to become a mighty 16. A dexterity of 10 is going to go to 11. And our constitution is going to jump to 15. Intelligence is going to become a 12. Wisdom is going to become a 14, and charisma also a 12. Now, these ones that are going from odd numbers to even numbers, that's great for us because you get a bonus to your modifier, which is kind of actually the number that really matters at even numbers. Odd numbers really don't do anything for you in stats, which does suck. And I will go over later on the different ways that people do their statistics. This was the rolling method, roll 4, drop the lowest. But you can also do a point buy. You can do a one where you just get a set stat array. The DM gets to choose, usually, what type of statistics, what kind of dice rolling or way to choose your stats that you're going to do. All right, so we've got a strength of 16, which means when we go back to page 13 in the player's handbook and take a look at our ability modifier chart now, rather than the +2, we're going to go to a +3 bonus, which is way better. So our strength little modifier is going to be a +3. I'm going to write that in that little bubble there. So I have a +3 bonus to my strength now. And we're going to do the same thing for all the stats all the way down. So a 10 or an 11 gives you a +0. So we're going to write a little 0 in there. Constitution of 15 is going to give us a +2, referring to the chart again. Intelligence of 12 is going to give us a +1 bonus, which means we are smarter than we intended to be. Wisdom is going to give us a 14 as a +2, and a charisma of 12 gives us a +1. All right, so now we have all of both our stat and our modifier in all these blocks. All right, and these modifiers are what we care about because they're going to allow us to determine what our saving throws are and what our skills are. So here we go. We are going to go ahead and take a look at these saving throws. Now, you don't get to choose what saving throws you have proficiency in, at least at level 1. Unless you get one as a bonus, you only get the 2 proficiencies that you have from your class. So in this case, we're gonna jump to the fighter real quick again. All right, here we are. We are back on page 71 with the fighter. So down here in Proficiencies, at the bottom of page 71 on the right, the fighter shows that he can use all armor and shields. He can use simple and martial weapons, and he can't use any tool proficiencies at the beginning, but he gets a proficiency in saving throws of strength and constitution. So strength and con, those are our 2 saving throws that we get proficiency with as a fighter. So here we go. We've got our strength and con right here in the saving throw. And to show that we have proficiency in both of those, I'm going to fill in this little bubble right here, like I'm filling out a test. So I've got strength there and constitution right there. I'm a little messy with it. All right, so those are now, we have proficiency in them, which means that they are going to be higher than they would normally be. So for each one of these, we're going to take our modifier in the appropriate stat. And if we have proficiency in it, we're additionally going to add our proficiency bonus. So once again, for strength, we're going to take our strength modifier of +3 right here. And normally, if we didn't have proficiency, it would just be 3. But because we do have proficiency, we also add the 2. So that gives us a +5 saving throw in strength. So that's great for us. We have a very high strength saving throw. Now on to dexterity. Now we don't have proficiency in dexterity right here. We have an empty bubble, which means we just do the modifier here. So that's a 0. So we have a dex saving throw of 0. Constitution, also proficiency in this. So same as strength. So we add our constitution modifier, which is a +2. And then we go up here and we add another 2 to +4. All right, our intelligence is just a +1 because we don't have proficiency in it. Wisdom is going to be +2, and charisma is going to be +1 because we do not have proficiency in any of those saving throws. All right, so that's +1 for intelligence, +2 for wisdom, and +1 for charisma. We have now filled out our saving throw block successfully. So we have a 5 strength, +5, +0 dex, +4 con, +1 int, +2 wisdom, and +1 charisma. Our saving throws are complete. Now we go to skills. All right, so as a fighter, we get to choose our background, and we're going to go back to that background section up here at the top of the sheet. And we're going to choose a background for ourselves. So that's a little farther along in the book, past all the classes. We get to select any one of these backgrounds right here in the book. And we're going to go ahead and start those on page 125 with this sort of dark masonite guy on it. All right, so this is once again, page 125 is where backgrounds begin, And you can flip through them and find whatever background you want. So we're going to go ahead and choose the criminal with this little tiefling guy on it. So the criminal, it says here, gains skill proficiencies in deception and stealth. They also get some tool proficiencies, which previously as a fighter we didn't have any. So we get one type of gaming set and thieves tools, and we get some extra equipment. So we get a crowbar, a set of dark common clothes, including a hood and pouch containing 15 gold pieces. So that will give us some gold. All right, so we're just going to do some basics here. So we get, it said deception and stealth. So like I did with the saving throws, I'm going to fill in the bubbles of anything that I gain proficiency with. All right, so deception and stealth. So deception is right here, so I'm going to fill in that bubble. And then stealth down here near the bottom. All right, so, all right, we've done it. We've got those two, but additionally, we also gain some from our class, and we get to make a choice. So I'm going to go back to Fighter here, page 71, and down at, on the next page, excuse me, page 72 here, it's page 72, up at the top, because it kind of rolled over, we get to choose our skills from 2 special skills. So we get to choose from acrobatics, animal handling, athletics, history, insight, intimidation, perception, and survival. All right, so some of those are really great skills to have on any adventure. And we're going to go ahead and choose 2 from this list. It says choose 2. Other classes like rogues get to choose more than 2 from their list, making them able to be good at multiple skills. But the fighter just gets 2. So we're going to go ahead and do athletics and perception because I like those skills. They're very good skills. So once again, I'm going to go ahead and fill in the bubble here. So athletics is this bubble right here, and perception is that bubble right there. All right. So each one of these skills corresponds to a statistic. And you can find how to, which skills correspond to what statistic in the player's handbook, once again. All right. Here we are on page 174. This is the skills section right here. All right, and this little chart right here shows you which skill corresponds with which statistic. So it shows us that strength corresponds only to athletics, which is why we chose athletics, because our strength is really high, so we're going to have a really high athletics. Dexterity corresponds to acrobatics, sleight of hand, and stealth. Intelligence corresponds to arcana, history, investigation, nature, and religion. Wisdom corresponds to animal handling, insight, medicine, perception, and survival. And charisma corresponds to deception, intimidation, performance, and persuasion. So when we figure out what our skill in a particular skill is going to be, what our number in the particular skill is going to be, we are going to look to its corresponding statistic. So we'll start with acrobatics. So what stat does acrobatics correspond to? It is dexterity right there, acrobatics. So we're going to look to our dexterity modifier, which we already remember is a +0. Pretty bad, but oh well. All right, so our acrobatics is going to be, we look for, see if the bubble's filled in. It's not, which means we do not add the +2, so it's just the modifier. So it is a 0. Animal handling, that corresponds to wisdom. Our wisdom is a +2, and we are not trained, so it's just the +2. Arcana is going to correspond to intelligence, and our intelligence is a +1, so that's what we have, +1. Now we're to our first trained skill, athletics, and this is going to be one of our best skills. So we look to our very high strength score, 16. That's a +3 modifier right there. And athletics is trained. We've got that circle filled in. So that means we add 2, our proficiency bonus. So that's going to make 3 plus 2, 5 for our athletics. So that is a whopping plus 5. That's usually the highest the highest skill number that you can get at level 1 is a plus 5, unless you're doing some crazy stuff. Deception. So we have, because we're a dirty criminal, we have training in deception, which is a charisma-based skill. So that's 1 plus 2 for the training, so that's a plus 3. So we took our deception, thanks to our background, from what would be a very average plus 1 to a decent plus 3 deception. And as we level up, these numbers that are trained are going to go even higher and get very good. History is based on intelligence, so we're going to look at our int, which is a plus 1. History does not trained, so that's just a plus 1. And we have a bunch of untrained skills here, so I'm just going to go ahead and correspond them to the right statistic. All right, our perception score, the one that we specifically chose to train in, because it's a really good skill. All right, so we get our wisdom of plus 2 here, plus our proficiency bonus of plus 2, making us a plus 4 perception. Now, because we have our perception score, we can go ahead and fill in our passive perception. Now, this is a number that the DM uses to determine whether or not you have seen something, say in your peripheral vision, or something that was attempted to be hidden. This is an important number for later on, and all it is your perception number plus 10. So 4 plus 10, 14. We just write a 14 in that bubble right there. All right, we've got that 14 filled in. We're ready to keep going. All right, so we have filled out the crunchy half of the sheet here, all of the stats and these blocks. That's very helpful for us. So this right here is where we put our proficiency bonuses and our languages. And I write some other stuff in here occasionally if I run out of room. All right, so our proficiencies, we can go back to the fighter class, and they gain proficiencies. Fighters are easy because they basically get proficiency in everything, in all the weapons and all the armors, which is very helpful to us because we are going to be a big beefy fighter guy. So proficiencies, here we are. All armor and shields, and all simple weapons and martial weapons. So I'm going to write all armor plus shields and all weapons. So other classes, like the wizard, gain much more limited armor and weapon proficiencies. Some can wear no armor at all, and you need to take that into account. And some can only wield specific weapons, like monks, who can only wield a select number of monk weapons. And if you try to use weapons that you're not proficient in, you don't get to add your proficiency bonus to your attack rolls, which is very bad. It makes them quite inaccurate. So we've got our proficiencies filled out, and since we're human, I'm going to go ahead and say that we speak Common and Elven. I think humans get to choose, they get Common by default, and they get to choose one language. So languages, Common and Elven. All right. So we've got this block filled out now. We've got our armor and shields, weapons, and our languages. All right, so now we get to choose our what kind of armor we're wearing, our initiative, and our speed. So our speed is going to be 30 feet because that is the speed of humans. We got to go to the human block to figure that out, but I know it by heart because basically most races have a speed of 30 feet. So on page 31, the humans again. We're looking at their human traits where we found their ability score bonus. And right there, it says speed. It says base walking speed, 30 feet. Your base walking speed is 30 feet, which means that is your speed. For halfling and dwarf, it's 25 feet, and most of the other races have 30 feet as well. I believe that some of the smaller races have 25 feet. All right, our initiative bonus is just our dexterity modifier. And we don't have any bonuses to that because we're a fighter. So it is a 0 + 0. So when we roll initiative, we're going to get to add a whopping 0 to it, which is why Dex is an awesome stat, because initiative is really important. All right, our armor class. Now, in order to know this, we need to know what kind of armor we're going to have. And in order to figure that out, you need to either consult with your dungeon master, and they are going to tell you some starting equipment, or they're going to tell you that you gain a certain amount of gold to purchase equipment from, which you can buy from the player's handbook. Or we're going to start with the initial fighter equipment, which is right here, right there, excuse me, on the page 72 with the fighters, the fighter stuff. So you get to start with the following equipment and any additional equipment granted by your background. So we already looked at that background equipment. So we get to start with either chainmail or leather armor. We also get, it's either leather armor, a longbow, and 20 arrows. So it's either chainmail or all three of those. In this case, we're going to be a frontline fighter. So leather armor, longbow, and 20 arrows makes me think of Robin Hood. So we're going to start with chainmail, which gives us a higher bonus to our armor class, which we can find on yet another page. And that is later in the book, page 145 here, this very important chart that shows us all of the armors and their bonuses. So when we look at chainmail, that is right here. It has an armor class of 16 and requires a 13 strength. Which we have more than enough strength to wield, and causes disadvantage on stealth checks. So since we just get this, because that's what the starting equipment says, we get an armor class of 16. And we'll go ahead and write that here. And then we also get to write chainmail right here in our items box. This is equipment. All right, so we've got chainmail down. We also got to start with some gold pieces. So each one of these blocks is for different levels of money. That's what they're intended for. So this one's for copper, and there's normally a little CP written right here. This one's for silver, and there's normally a little SP for silver pieces. And this one is for gold, the one that we use the most. And we got 15 gold from our background with some other equipment. I don't remember the other equipment. I could go look it up, but it's not that important. We can go find it later. But we're going to go ahead and write our gold. So we have 15 gold pieces there. That's just how you keep track of your money. So we got our armor class, and that is quite important for us. And we're going to go ahead and do the rest of our equipment while we're here. So we're going to head back to the fighter on page 72. And we're going to look at the rest of the equipment block here. So it says we gain a martial weapon and a shield, or 2 martial weapons. So I like sword and board, so weapon and shield. So I'm going to go ahead and take a long sword and a shield. Now shield's pretty darn easy. We're going to go ahead and write shield down here in our equipment. And all that does is give us a straight +2 to our armor class. So our armor class is now at 18, as long as we're wielding the shield, holding it out. So all I've got to do is remember that that's a 16 if I don't have the shield equipped. And we're going to get a longsword, which helps us fill out this attack and spellcasting box. Now, normally there are like little boxes right here to help you out. This box is not normally blank, but I went ahead and made it blank just in case you have yours blank. So this is where you write your attacks and spellcasting. Usually it's used for weapons. In this case we have a longsword. And without looking it up, although I will, it's very close to where the armor was. It is page 149 here in this massively very helpful chart. And we're looking in martial weapons here for a longsword, which is right there. 15 gold pieces, does a D8 slashing, and has the versatile property. So, D8 slashing, that's what we wanted to know. So we're going to go ahead and write a little longsword So I wrote longsword and I put a little divide, and I'm going to put my attack bonus with that longsword now. So how would I figure that out? A longsword does not have the finesse property, which is a property on things like daggers. So that little property right there, finesse, and that is the dagger right there. And finesse allows you to wield that weapon using your dexterity. Longsword does not have that. It just has the versatile property. So that means we wield it with our strength. That is all weapons. All weapons are used with their strength or dex, unless they're, I don't know, some kind of magic item weirdness. So this is a strength-based weapon, so we look to our strength modifier here, +3. And are we proficient with a longsword? Well, we are proficient with all weapons because we're a freaking fighter. So yes, we are proficient with a longsword, which means we look to our proficiency bonus. We get a bonus of 2, so 3 + 2, 5. So we get a +5 attack bonus with a longsword. So we got a +5 attack there, and the longsword does a d8 damage. So 1d8. That means if I want to do the longsword's damage, I roll a trusty d8 here. Boom. All right, so we just rolled maximum damage. That is an 8. And what do we add to that? We do add something. So we get to add our strength modifier to that damage. So +3. So this is a d8 +3 damage, and it says it deals slashing damage. All right, so we've got our longsword complete right here. +5 attack bonus, 1d8 +3 slashing damage. There we go. And that is how you do weapons. Spells are fairly the same, except they tend to use your wisdom or intelligence score to determine their attacks, if they have an attack roll. And they do damage set by the spell. So Firebolt does a d8 of fire damage instead of like a slashing or a bludgeoning. All right, so that is how we do weapons. This box right here, hit dice, is very easy to do. We have a number of hit dice equal to our level. So in this case, we have 1 hit dice. And it is based on us being a fighter, specifically. It is right here, here on page 71 again, in the hit points section of the fighter. Hit dice is 1d10 per fighter level. So we gain a 1d10 hit dice. All right, so we have 1 hit dice, and it is worth 1d10 plus our Constitution modifier of +2. So it's 1d10, and because I didn't leave myself enough space, I'm going to erase that. All right, 1d10 +2. All right, there we go. 1d10 +2, and we have 1 hit dice, and that will go up every single level. But this number will not change unless our Constitution modifier goes up. It will always be 1d10 plus Constitution modifier. And once again, there are usually some boxes in here for how many hit dice you have and how much they're worth. But I decided to print the sheet without that, just in case you have your sheet without that. So current hit points, we need to figure that out. That is in the same section right here, the hit points. And hit points at first level are as follows: 10 plus your Constitution modifier of 2, so 12 initial hit points. And then that is all we get for level 1. So we currently have a 12 hit point fighter right there. And I'm going to write like 12 of 12 right there. So that's our current hit points, and that will go up every level. And how we find how much they go up by is right here at hit points at higher levels. And it shows you that you can either roll a dice, a d10, plus your con modifier, and add that to the total, or you can choose to add 6 plus your Constitution modifier, something that I usually do, just to keep hit points in a relative linear path upwards. You don't want to roll a 1. That sucks. All right, and this temporary hit point box here is used in gameplay for when you gain bonus hit points due to spells or other abilities. So we'll just leave that blank. That isn't helpful right now. And we are almost to the end here. The features and traits box is what we're going to deal with a lot. This box right here is in dealing with your personality traits, ideals, bonds, and flaws. These can be quite complicated, or they can be quite simple. You can take certain suggestions from your background. We took criminal on page 129. So we can choose a personality trait from here, this little box under criminal, that lets us roll for a personality trait, an ideal, a bond, and a flaw, which is on the next page. We can just roll it, and whatever we get, we can write that in the box. For instance, personality traits for a criminal. The first one is, I always have a plan for what to do when things go wrong. And we can write that in our personality traits, and then that is part of our character, and we try to play that up as much as possible because we are good role players, and we like role-playing stuff, and that's why we're playing Dungeons & Dragons. So we can have, but you can also write stuff that you make up in these boxes. Things, if you have a personal character, one that you want to play, you can try to fill out things that make sense for that character in these boxes. These are basically your character's traits that are not included necessarily in these more crunchy statistics over here. This is more the role acting area of the sheet. And we're going to stick with how to fill the sheet out. So let's just say I have rolled all 1s for these personality traits, ideals, bonds, and flaws. All right, so since these are so subjective, you can just roll them if you want. We're going to go ahead and move on to features and traits, this very long box right here. And this one's very easy for us as a level 1 fighter. All we do is go back to the fighter page on page 71. And we look right here in this little handy dandy chart, and it shows us here we are first level, and we gain 2 features, fighting style and second wind. So these are our class features. We also might gain some race features. We'll check those in a second. So fighting style, we look in the fighter class, page 72 right here, and these are fighting styles. For simplicity's sake, we're going to go ahead and choose defense, which gives you a +1 to armor class while you're wielding armor, which we have armor on. We have a chainmail, so we're going to get a whopping 19 armor class, which is pretty great. We're going to be very hard to hit. Frontline fighter here with 12 hit points and a crazy high armor class, which is good for us. All right, so we've got, we're going to have defensive fighting style. All right, we've got our defensive fighting style, and it gives us a +1 to AC. All right, there we go. I probably spelled defensive wrong. I don't care, I'm going fast. Defensive fighting style, 1 AC. We've got to get to a game. It's in 10 minutes, guys. We've got to finish. All right, so defensive fighting style there, and we go back to see what other abilities we get. We get the second wind ability. Now, some of these abilities are very long, paragraphs and paragraphs long. These ones aren't too bad, but you can see you may not want to write this whole thing right here. The second wind ability allows us, on our turn, we can use a bonus action to gain 1d10 plus our level hit points back. And it recharges on a short or long rest. Very good ability, very classic fighter ability. So we're just going to write second wind 1d10 plus 1. And since I know what that does, all right, we're going to be a little messy here. So there we go, second wind, 1d10 plus 1 HP. And that is a good note to remind me that I have it. I might also write recharges short or long rest if I wanted to. You can write however much you need to or don't need to on there. You could write just second wind if you know exactly what the ability does. And you want to kind of scrunch these boxes for abilities you run out pretty quick. Maybe not with the fighter, but certainly with other classes. And then we're going to go ahead, and our race can also give us abilities. So we're going to go back and take a look at the human. And I happen to know that humans do not gain any bonuses. You can gain a feat if you are a variant human, but we're not going to be a variant human for now. However, let's go to a race that does gain some abilities, the halfling here. So if we are on the halfling, page 28, we can look and see that halflings gain the lucky ability. So whenever they roll a 1 on a d20 for an attack roll, abilities check, which is, these are ability checks right here. If you roll strength, dex, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, or acrobatics, intimidation, medicine, all these are ability checks. If you roll a 1 on attack roll, ability check, or saving throw, you can re-roll the dice, but must use the new result. This is a very helpful ability. They also get Brave, which gives them advantage on saving throws against being frightened, and Halfling Nimbleness, which means they can move through underneath, say, the legs of a person that's human size or bigger, a medium creature or larger. They also get abilities for the Lightfoot Halfling breed or the Stout Halfling. Lightfoot gets naturally stealthy, and Stout gets Stout Resilience. And we would also write those type of abilities in this box. And if we run out of this box, we always have the second page with this additional features and traits box right here to fill in more stuff. And that is it for the first page now, guys. So our first page is totally filled out. I will do another video for the second and third page. These are less important in the grand scheme of the pages, although the spell one can be very important depending on what you are. But we will do these in a separate video together. This is the main page and the only page we need for our numbers. All right. Oh, I forgot about background. I'm going to put a hit criminal there. And our alignment, we can choose from the alignment section, which is near backgrounds back here. If I can use my special ability to instantly find it once again. Yeah, I did. I'm great at that. So our alignments are right here on page 122. And the alignments are described herein: lawful good, chaotic good, lawful neutral, neutral, chaotic neutral, lawful evil, neutral evil, and chaotic evil. And your character can be of any alignment that you want, even a criminal, although they probably tend towards evil, or at least neutral. And you can choose that from here and talk with your DM, decide what sounds right for your character. Alignment in 5e doesn't prevent you from a lot of stuff like it used to in older editions. Sometimes you needed to be lawful good to wield a special sword or something like that. But there aren't too many spells or abilities that deal with alignment in 5th edition, which I like. All right, guys. So we've got our sheet filled out. It's a little messy and doesn't look perfect, but it doesn't need to. You know, we did it. So hopefully this is helpful, and I will get back with you guys with more help videos soon. If you enjoyed this process, please give me a like and a subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. Hit the bell icon to be notified of farther help videos, and our 5e campaign Mythia. More episodes coming soon on Fridays at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Talk to you guys later.